I met Daniel 3 years ago. We worked in the same company. I was a project manager and he was in my team. Daniel was not the kind of person who talked a lot. He was quiet. He did his work well. He also had a strange habit. Whenever he left the office, he always said, "See you tomorrow." It did not matter if it was Monday or Friday. He always said it. At first, I did not think much about it. We were just co-workers. But after some time, I got used to hearing those words. "See you tomorrow." Sometimes I said it back without looking up from my computer. "See you." One Thursday night, I was still working at 8 o'clock. The office was almost empty. I had a big project to finish, and the deadline was the next morning. My eyes hurt, and I had not eaten dinner. Daniel walked past my desk. He stopped and looked at me. "You are still here?" I smiled. "Yeah, I need to finish this report." He looked at the clock. "It's 8. I know. You should go home." "I will. Just give me 1 more hour." Daniel laughed. "You said that 2 hours ago." I laughed too. Then he went to the kitchen. A few minutes later, he came back with a cup of coffee. He put it on my desk. "Drink this." I looked at the coffee. "You are saving my life." "No," he said, "I am saving the project." We both laughed. Then he pulled a chair next to me. "Show me the report." "You don't have to help me." "I know. But you are helping me anyway." "Exactly." He stayed with me for another 40 minutes. He checked some numbers. He found 2 small mistakes. He also helped me change one part of the report. At about 9 o'clock, he stood up. "I'm going home." I looked at him. "Okay. See you tomorrow." He smiled. "See you tomorrow." Then he walked away. I watched him leave the office. I remember that moment very clearly now. But at that time, it meant nothing to me. I finished my report at 10. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 8:30. Something felt different. Daniel's desk was empty, his computer was gone, his chair was gone. Even the small green plant beside his monitor was gone. I looked around. "Where is Daniel?" My coworker looked at me. "You don't know?" "Know what?" She paused for a second. "Daniel left the company yesterday." I thought she was joking. "Yesterday?" She nodded. "Yes, yesterday was his last day." I stood there and said nothing. Then I suddenly remembered his last words. "See you tomorrow." I realized something. Sometimes, "see you tomorrow" is not a promise. Sometimes it is a goodbye. You just don't know it yet. I could not stop thinking about Daniel that morning. I kept looking at his empty desk. There was nothing left. No coffee cup, no notebook, no green plant. It was as if he had never worked there. I asked my coworker again, "Why did Daniel leave?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe he found a better job." "A better job?" Maybe. That answer made sense. At least I wanted it to make sense. Daniel was good at his job. He was careful, patient, and reliable. Maybe another company had offered him more money. Maybe he wanted a better life. Maybe he was simply tired of our company. I told myself all these things. Then I went back to work. But something still felt wrong. At lunch, I asked another coworker about him. She said, "He told Lisa 3 weeks ago." I looked at her. 3 weeks ago? Yeah. That surprised me. If Daniel had decided to leave 3 weeks ago, why did he say nothing to me? We worked together every day. We had lunch together sometimes. He helped me with my projects. I helped him with his. I thought we were more than just co-workers. Maybe I was wrong. That afternoon I opened my phone. I found Daniel's name. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "Hey, I heard you left. I hope you're doing well." I almost deleted the message. It felt strange, but I sent it. Daniel did not reply. 1 hour passed, then 3 hours. Nothing. I put my phone away and went back to work. At 11 that night, my phone finally rang. It was Daniel. His message was very short. "Thank you. I hope you are doing well too." That was all. I read it twice. Then I typed, "Why did you leave?" I looked at the words. My fingers stayed above the screen. I wanted to send it, but I didn't. I deleted the question. Instead, I wrote, "Take care." He replied, "You too." I put my phone on the table. I felt a little angry. I didn't know why. Maybe I was angry because he left without telling me. Maybe I was angry because he did not trust me enough to say goodbye. Or maybe I was angry at myself, because I knew something was missing. A few weeks passed. Life became busy again. A new person started using Daniel's desk. I trained her for 2 days. She was friendly and worked hard. But sometimes when I saw her sitting there, I still thought about Daniel. Then one afternoon, I was looking for an old project file. I opened a folder from 3 months earlier. There were many emails inside. I clicked one without thinking. The sender was Lisa. The subject was simple: Daniel's final warning. I stopped breathing for a moment. I opened the email. I read the first line. Then I saw my name. I read it again. My hands became cold. For the first time, I wondered if Daniel had not left because he found a better job. Maybe he had left because something had happened. And somehow, I was part of it. I opened the email again. It was from Lisa. She was our department manager. The email was sent 3 months ago. The first line said, "Daniel, we need to talk about the project." I kept reading. The project was the same one I had managed. It was the project that had gone wrong. The deadline was very tight. The client wanted everything in 2 weeks. Daniel was responsible for one important part. He told me several times that he needed more time. I remembered one afternoon. He came to my desk and said, "We need 2 more days." I was busy with 3 other things. I did not even look at him. "We don't have 2 more days," I said, "but the numbers are not ready. Just finish what you can." He stood there for a moment. Then he said, "Okay." I forgot about that conversation, but now I remembered every word. I went back to the email. Lisa wrote that Daniel had missed the deadline. She said the client was unhappy. She also said the team needed someone to take responsibility. Then I saw my own email. I had written, "Daniel did not finish his part on time." I stared at the sentence. It was true. He had not finished it on time. But there was something I did not write. I did not say that Daniel had warned me. I did not say that he had asked for more time. I did not say that I had told him to continue anyway. I felt uncomfortable. I closed my eyes. I remembered another day. It was the day after the client complained. Daniel came to my desk. He looked tired. He asked, "Do you think I did something wrong?" I was looking at my computer. "I had a meeting in 10 minutes," I said. "We all made mistakes." He did not move. After a few seconds, he asked, "Do you think I made the biggest mistake?" I finally looked at him. I remember feeling annoyed. "Daniel, we don't have time for this now." He was quiet. Then he nodded. "Okay, I understand." He walked away. At that time, I thought he was asking about work. Now I was not so sure. I continued reading the emails. Lisa had sent Daniel a warning. Daniel replied, "I understand." Then Lisa sent another email. She said the company could not accept another mistake. Daniel's reply was very short. "I think it is time for me to leave." I read that sentence again and again. My heart started beating faster. He had not found another job. He had not simply wanted a better life. He had decided to leave. Then I saw the date. It was 2 days after the conversation at my desk. I leaned back in my chair. Suddenly, I remembered his face that day. He had looked at me for a long time. I had not understood why. Now I understood. He was not asking me about the project. He was asking me if I believed him, and I had given him no answer. I closed the email. For the first time I felt ashamed. Daniel had not needed me to fix his problem. He had only needed me to listen, and I had been too busy to do that. I looked at his empty desk across the room. Then I whispered, "I'm sorry, Daniel." But he was not there to hear it. After I read the email, I wanted to talk to Daniel. I wanted to say sorry, but I did not know how. I opened our chat many times. I typed, "I'm sorry." Then I deleted it. I typed, "Can we talk?" I deleted that too. What could I say after 3 months? I decided to leave it alone. Then, one Friday, our company held a small business event. I did not want to go, but my manager asked me to attend. The event was in a hotel near our office. There were many people in the room. I was talking to a client when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Excuse me, can I get through?" I turned around. It was Daniel. For a second, I could not say anything. He looked different. He wore a simple white shirt. His hair was shorter, but his smile was the same. He looked at me. "Hey," I smiled. "Hey." We stood there for a few seconds. Then I asked, "How are you?" He smiled. "I'm good. How about you?" "I'm good too." It was a simple conversation, but my heart was beating very fast. I wanted to ask him many questions. Instead, I said, "Do you like your new job?" He nodded. "Yes, it's good." "Are you happy?" He thought for a moment. Then he smiled. "Yeah, I think I am." I felt happy for him, but I still had one question. I took a deep breath. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you leave?" He looked at me. He did not answer right away. Then he said, "I was tired." "Of the job?" He shook his head. "No." He looked down at his coffee. "I was tired of feeling like nobody believed me." I felt something inside me break. I wanted to say something, but I could not. He continued, "I knew the project was difficult. I knew I made mistakes, but I tried my best." "I know," I said quietly. He looked at me. "Do you?" I nodded. "I know now." He smiled a little. "I don't blame you." I looked at him. "You don't?" "No." He took a small breath. "You were busy. You wanted the project to succeed." Then he said something I will never forget. "But I waited for you to ask me what happened." I lowered my eyes. "I should have asked." "Yes," he said. "You should have." There was no anger in his voice. That made it hurt even more. We stood there quietly. Then he smiled. "You know, I don't hate that place." I looked at him. "I just don't want to be that person again." I knew what he meant. He did not want to be the person who stayed late every night. He did not want to keep saying, "I'm fine," when he was not fine. And he did not want to wait for someone to notice. For the first time, I understood something. Sometimes people don't leave because they stop caring. Sometimes they leave because they have cared for too long. The event ended at 6. People started leaving the hotel. Daniel and I walked outside together. It was getting dark. The street was busy. Cars moved slowly, and people walked past us. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then I looked at him. "Daniel." He turned around. "I want to say something." He smiled. "Okay." I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry." He looked at me. I continued. "I should have listened to you." He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "I know." Those 2 words made me feel better. Not because everything was okay, but because he had heard me. I smiled. "I really thought I would see you the next day." Daniel laughed softly. "I know. You always said that." "Yeah, I did." "Why?" He thought for a moment. "Maybe because I didn't like saying goodbye." I looked at him. He smiled. "Goodbyes are difficult." I nodded. We stood there for a while. Then I asked, "Can we stay in touch?" He smiled. "Of course." The subway entrance was just a few steps away. Daniel stopped. "This is me." I nodded. "Okay." He started walking down the stairs. Then I called his name. "Daniel." He turned around. This time I did not look at my phone. I did not think about work. I just looked at him. "Thank you," he smiled. "For what?" "For everything." He laughed. "You are welcome." Then he said, "Take care." I smiled. "You too." He turned around and walked down the stairs. I watched him disappear into the crowd. This time I knew it was goodbye. A few days later, I went back to the office. Someone new was sitting at Daniel's old desk. She was working on her computer. She had a small green plant beside her monitor. For a second I thought of Daniel. Then I understood something. People leave our lives in many ways. Sometimes they move to another city. Sometimes they change jobs. Sometimes they stop calling. And sometimes they simply stop waiting for us. We often think we have more time. We think we can say sorry tomorrow. We think we can have dinner next week. We think we can call them when we are less busy. But life does not always give us another chance. Daniel once stood beside my desk and asked me a simple question. "Do you think I did something wrong?" I did not really answer him. I was too busy. Years later, I still remember that moment. Now, when someone talks to me, I try to stop. I put down my phone. I look at them. And I listen. Because sometimes people don't need an answer. They just need to know that someone cares. And sometimes the hardest goodbye is the one we never knew was coming.